Good morning. Would we all please stand? And I'd like to ask County Employed Pastor Doug Oliver to guide us in prayer.
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, this beautiful day, and we thank you that you allowed all of us to be here and healthy. And I just pray for these commissioners as they make decisions about the county, that you would just give them wisdom to make those decisions, these hard decisions they have to make. And we just thank you for everything you do. In your name, amen.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and please be seated. Good morning, everyone, and I'll be leading the agenda today. President Commissioner Klein's under the weather, and we certainly pray for him and wish him a speedy recovery. With that, I'd like to ask for the approval of the September 10th minutes.
Make the motion approved. Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Commissioners' reports and comments. Let's just start with Commissioner Meinl-Schmidt.
Got none for today.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner.
I don't have any either.
Thank you. Commissioner Kiefer.
I just have one quick thing here. I had an opportunity last week to attend the Planning Commission meeting as certainly just a citizen. I stood back in the audience. It was standing room only. I was reading some of the articles to come out from that meeting. Certainly a lot was discussed, and I would just like to clarify one thing that I saw that came out in an article. One of the developers who was looking at the property at the corner of Downsville Pike and is that Halfway Boulevard?
Halfway Boulevard.
Halfway Boulevard, yeah. Mentioned pushback the previous year that the commissioners were asking that the property be donated to him. And I didn't quite recall that, so I asked county staff to go through and look through our meeting minutes and listen to some audio recording. And that doesn't seem to necessarily be accurate. I'm fighting a cold too, so please bear with me here. But what we did find in the meeting minutes is that we had asked if there would be consideration for that property to be sold so it could be included as part of Marty Stuck Park. So commissioners didn't ask for that to be donated. We were interested in purchasing. And as the meeting minutes reflected, we directed staff to meet with that developer to see if there could be a possibility of a selling price. They reported back to us on February 6th of 2018 that they were not interested in selling. So that wasn't about a donation, that was about us purchasing. And just some slightly inaccurate information given to the Planning Commission. I know some Planning Commission members commented on that, and I hope that that could be forwarded to the Planning Commission members as well, that was not, in fact, accurate. So that's the only comment I have.
Thank you. For myself, I'd like to thank Pastor Oliver for guiding us this morning in prayer. And again, I'd like to wish President Commissioner Klein a speedy recovery. And Rob, I had a call this week about parking lots, in particular down at Devil's Backbone. In the fall, we closed the parks up. The trout fishermen have no place to park other than along the highway if they want to go down and fish. And they were wondering if there'd be a possibility to be able to move the gate back a little bit so that we could put a little parking lot between the road and the gate. So, and they just referenced the Devil's Backbone, but maybe we could look at all of the parks that provide trout fishing to the fishermen and maybe do something at all of those parks if need be. So, okay, thank you. Okay, last chance for commissioner comments. County staff reports. Any staff member in the chambers care to provide a report to the commissioners? Please come forward. State your name. How are you this morning? And tell us who's with you. Oh.
Good morning, Commissioners. Barry Jackson.
Candy, just what we need.
Barry Jackson, Deputy Director, Washington County Board of Elections. With me is Teresa Morningstar, our election supervisor. We're here today to talk about next Tuesday, September 24th. That is National Voter Registration Day. And to celebrate the day, the Board of Elections is holding an open house at our office on 35 West Washington Street in Hagerstown from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We'll be taking voter registration applications as well as applications for election judges for the upcoming 2020 presidential election. And a reminder to county staff that the commissioners earlier this year approved administrative leave for county employees who work as election judges, subject to their manager's approval, of course. So thank you, commissioners, for approving that. We'll also have voting equipment set up so that folks who come to visit can practice voting and casting their ballot. We'll have a mock ballot where they can actually cast, mark their votes and actually send it through the scanning unit. So they'll get to see that up close. And then we'll have some light refreshments and some fun activities with chances for visitors to win fabulous prizes. Again, that's Tuesday, September 24th from 9 to 3 at our office on 35 West Washington Street in Hagerstown. And I know that you all have a meeting next week, but hopefully you'll get that finished in time. You'll be able to come and visit us in the afternoon. And then, of course, anything that the election board does can't be done without candy. And so that's why Teresa was passing that out and wanted to make sure everybody got some that's here. So any questions? Just wanted to make that announcement.
Now, it's not just candy you passed out, it's airheads.
There you go.
Is there
Not
an
just
implied
candy.
message there?
Larry, since they're mock ballots and they don't mean anything, you think you'd reverse alphabetical order on them things this time where the
Well,
W's are on top and
They're already produced, so they are at what they are. So, and then we'll probably actually submit the results afterwards, just to see who won, that kind of a thing, just a little fun thing. So, all righty, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff in the chambers care to provide a report? Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Good.
Danielle Weaver, Director of Public Relations and Marketing. I'm here to make you aware that we are introducing a new mobile app for the county residents and others in the community. We know that our residents and others in the community live busy lives, and so we wanted to create a convenient way for them to interact with the county governments. We will be launching that today. So make sure that you go in and go to the Apple Store or Google Play and look for the George logo and download the app. Some of the convenient features that it will offer, you can actually follow our social media accounts without having a personal social media account. So that's a way to keep up to date on what we're doing around the community. It will also allow you to report road problems by using either a photo, a video, or text. To submit that, you can stay up to date on county news. You can find commissioners' bios, information about divisions and departments and ways to contact them. There's a lot of important features that the app is going to offer. So we're excited to announce that today.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great news.
So make sure you
Thank you.
download it.
Yeah, thank you. I know she is. I'll show you that I have it downloaded after it's downloaded. So that way you'll know I have it downloaded. Any other staff in the chambers care to provide a report to the commissioners? Okay, thank you. Let's move around here. Ms. Greaves?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to provide to you a high-level summary of what's going on right now in the Department of Budget and Finance. We are currently underway with our annual audit. We have just received additional information that we were waiting on to start to prepare our financial statements for fiscal year 2019. So I wanted today to provide you some information that we have related to that. During the year-end process, I think it's important to note that every balance sheet account for each fund that we have is reviewed and reconciled. So that process has to happen before we move forward with our financial statement preparation. And then also with that, once we have all of our revenues accounted for, we take a step back and we look at the county as a whole to try to determine if there are any funds that maybe need an additional cash distribution to maintain our policy reserve requirement for cash reserves. So that's kind of where we are right now. And we have some information here for you identified, which includes 3 different adjustments that we are prepared to make. So the first one, and keep in mind, I don't want to move forward too quickly. These adjustments that we make at year end are over and above the budgeted amount. So anything budgeted to be distributed to these funds for FY19, this amount is in addition to those. And these are estimates. These are funds that are identified to say, hey, we think this fund is going to need a little bit more cash to meet the reserve requirement. So the first one is golf. We are contributing $100,000 to the golf fund, and this is not because golf overspent their budget. They did not. There were less revenues than anticipated, probably due to the weather, and less play because of that. So they actually underspent their budget, but there was still a gap. That gap was not exactly $100,000. We are rounding and making these adjustments. Additionally, Highway Fund received a $200,000 additional appropriation. I think it's important to note that in fiscal year 2019, the snow budget was actually over about $960,000. So the fact that Highway Fund requires an additional $200,000 in cash is not is actually a very good turnout, comparatively speaking, to what had occurred. After we make those adjustments, we always, and this has been standard operating procedure for many, many years, if there is an excess at the end of the year, generally we transfer some of that to the capital fund for future one-time expenditures, non-recurring expenditures. So we always want to keep an amount in the general fund to provide for our 17% reserve, and then we transfer an amount out. Currently, we have transferred out $2.5 million to the capital fund. Now, what that does is that creates a situation where any excess over that would remain in the general fund and would provide for our current reserve. So our reserve requirement is 17% of general fund revenues. Based on that percentage, last year, FY18 numbers, we had a 17.54% for our reserve requirement, which was $39.1 million. The remaining funds in our general fund currently for fiscal year 2019 would be about $3.6 million, which would increase that percentage from 17.5 to 17.9. I wanted to present this information to you today. This is certainly not a comprehensive presentation of where we are for year end. I think I can come back and give you some more detail. But where we are right now, I want to make sure the commissioners understand what we do in budget and finance and what adjustments we make at year end to try to make sure that all of our funds meet their policy reserve levels and limits. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
You said, maybe I missed something there. You said 3 items. You had golf, highway. Is there a third
And
one?
capital.
And
Golf,
capital. That
highway,
was
and
the
capital.
third one, okay.
Yeah.
On the golf, you'd referenced $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So comparing it to years past, what?
It's not out of line with years past, and actually, even though we're transferring $100,000 to beef up that cash balance a little bit, that's not really what the fund would have actually needed. It's probably closer to $50,000. Again, some of these adjustments at year end, they're estimates, and they're just moving cash from one fund to another. So what we've seen in the past with golf is generally it does require an additional appropriation at the end of the year. And so I don't think that...
That was going to be my question. So this year's appropriation seems to be less than what it had been in years past.
I think so, and I can look at that for you and provide you a response on that, yeah.
Terry, if I could shed some light on that, I was at the board meeting yesterday, and even if you want Andrew to give a report at this time, there are leaps and bounds that, and that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but they're so much better than what they were the years before on their rounds of golf and their income and revenue, and they're working with equipment that they're actually borrowing from on our golf courses and trying to cut those costs. And just the less than a year I've been on there, they've really made progress, and I think Andrew would agree with that. Raise your hand if you agree, Andrew. Yeah.
That was the good news that I wanted to.
Yeah, they're a lot better than they were the previous year at this point.
Thank you, Andrew, for all your work and efforts out there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Brew and golf. Yeah, everybody should try to make it out there. They're going to have they have, I think, 29 foursomes already, right? Isn't that what we heard? Yeah. Plus, and then in the evening, they're going to have the band and all the functions. Go ahead, you do it.
All right, yeah. So as of yesterday, we had 29 teams registered for the tournament, which we were pairing up with Antietam Brewery for that event. And then in the evening, starting at 7, we have a local band, South Mountain Breed, coming to do a small event there. So you can buy a ticket just for the evening event. We have food trucks and things lined up as well. So we hope it's going to be a good event and something hopefully that we can continue in future years as well. So you can buy tickets in advance or at the gate as well. It's $25 if you're just going to the evening event, and there's a $15 DD rate if you don't plan to drink alcohol. So hopefully it's open to those who aren't golfers as well.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Greaves? Okay, coming around the table, boards and commissions.
No, sir.
County attorney issues.
No issues.
Now, our administrator.
Thank you, Vice President Baker. I have a bit of a theme of appreciation for customer service today, and I'd like to mention a few names if you'll give me a moment. One is we had a handwritten note from one of our citizens that was very appreciative of Homer Spradlin's service and Mr. Randy Kretzer. Homer is the Southern Section Supervisor, and Randy is the Assistant Southern Section Supervisor. Handwritten note to thank them for some culvert work that they did. Another voice message came into our office, and that was from a lady who received service on a grinder pump on a Sunday. Very thankful for Jimmy Hastings, who is Senior Collections Operator, and thankful for Kevin McCareth, also a Senior Collections Operator, and their helpfulness, not just with the service, but also with the information they provided in the timely response. And the third is, I know we have Mr. Doug Levine and Zane Rao here. I'd like to share and give this to the Highway Department as a whole. They both participated, and Doug led the last 2 years, the Amateur Road National Championships. All the road work that went on was done under the leadership of Doug Levine. So I'd like to share this, and I think this belongs out at the Highway Department, if you don't mind, Commissioners.
I like that blue shirt, Doug. Yeah.
And the final comment I have is that a reminder that the Smithsburg evening meeting will be at 6 o'clock tonight in Smithsburg. So,
Okay, last chance for staff reports. Okay, let's move forward to citizens' participation. We have any citizens here today in the chambers who would care to participate? Please come forward and state your name, address, and what? Yes, sir. Welcome.
My name is Stephen McDonough. I reside at 16906 Pickwick Lane, Hagerstown, Maryland. Been a Washington County resident for 54 years. And what I'm here for today is to discuss what's commonly called the mobile law tax in Washington County. I'd like to discuss how it's applied and the obscene amount of the tax rate. Okay. Okay.
Yes, my name is Ed Pipkin. I've been a resident of Washington County for over 20 years. Also a Air Force veteran, disabled. My wife is disabled. Live at 11326 Lakeside Drive. And like I say, what Steve and me are here today is about this tax. This really affects us people who are not only semi-retired, retired, but most people in that mobile home park are disabled, retired people, and to have such a tax really takes away from their necessities of food and medication. So that's why Steve and I are here today to speak with you all about this. I spoke to Jeff earlier, but unfortunately he's sick. I hope he gets better. So, good, Steve.
Okay. But what I have to say is that it's normally called a mobile home tax. The resolution was passed in 1963, 56 years ago. Okay. And it's morphed into something that the resolution has nothing to do with. Okay. It's actually called a resolution levying a tax on automobile trailer camps and fixing amounts and providing for the collection thereof and prescribing penalties for violation of the resolution. Now, I'm not certain, but I don't think somewhere along the line somebody corrupted the meaning of that to mean trailer homes, your house trailers. And I don't think by any stretch of imagination it can be considered an automobile trailer. It can't even be licensed. You can't take them on the highway. You're not going to be taking them on your travel. You're not going to do anything like that. Okay? And it goes on to say that it gives a definition of what they consider to be automobile trailer. I should mention, first of all, once you read it, it's totally, you would be able to see that it's totally set up to be a tax on recreational vehicle campgrounds. Okay. If you'd like to have a copy, I can provide you with copies and we can follow along.
Yes, by reading this, mostly what it is for campers and RVs. We do not have campers or RVs. We can't even have them at Lakeside parked anywhere. And it's definitely not a campsite. So this is, like I say, this is why we're presenting this here today to you with the hopes that maybe the commission can help to do away with this tax.
Okay. And as you read through it and go the whole way through, there's actually only 2 pages. The last page shows you how much is collected, okay, for any given month and for a total. Okay. Again, you know, when you read this, and I don't know how you feel about house trailers, but like I say, you can't travel them. They're not an automobile trailer. When you go through this, it tells you that it defines what a trailer camp is. It tells you how about the gross charges. Basically, Section 1, automobile trailer. Our house trailers fail to meet that. The trailer camp, paragraph 2. Our residential community fails to meet that. 3, the gross monthly charges. And the charges aren't gross. Okay, there's no doubt it's 15%, and it's based on your rent. That means my trailer at Lakeside Park is being taxed at a different rate than any other trailers in any of the other trailer parks while receiving the same services. As an example, and about how gross this tax is, I retired here 4 years ago and decided to buy my home in Lakeside Park. I bought one of the smallest trailers there is. It's 10 by 65, 650 square feet. I paid $2,500 for it. Now, using the property tax rate at 99.8 cents a hundred, the value of my property should be $79,920. Okay? We pay a total of $799.20 to the county for the privilege of parking our trailers onto a lot that's already being taxed by you through Lakeside Village. Okay. It goes on to say, and that's what's in Section 2, that rate is 15%. Okay. The other ones, the other one tells you, Section 3 tells you how it's accumulated. Section 4, Section 4 is that it's basically that Lakeside's required to collect that tax. And I've been there for 4 years now. Ed's been there for 20.
No, I've been there for 5 years.
Ed's been there for 5, okay? No one in that park that we've spoken through the Residents Association was even aware that there's a 15% what's called a mobile home tax applied to our rent until we got it in our new rent notices in June, where it was broke out as a separate line item. And you know, quite frankly, when you find out you're getting taxed at a rate of 15% for a tax that's not even applicable to your home, okay, it's got everyone going. If you take and go to Section 5, it tells every trailer camp, it shall keep and maintain on the premises of the trailer camp a register showing the name, address, license number, date of arrival, date of departure, and the amount of charge to each trailer owner. It goes on to say that the register should be kept so it can be inspected. It also, Section 6 says it's got to pay the treasurer taxes when they're due as described. Section 7 is the firm or corporation is liable for the taxes. Section 8 says that it's the resolution took effect July 1st, 1963. Okay. None of the residents in our residents association or people that don't attend the residents meetings feel that it's just that we feel that we don't feel we meet the standards of this resolution. To give you an idea of how unfairly it's being applied, based on 15% of our rent, our monthly contribution to the rent at Lakeside Park is $66.60. Now I used information that's available through a industry website called mhvillage.com. It's a residential community site where they're able to advertise their communities, where they're able to advertise the trailers, the house trailers that are for sale in their communities. I use their number of lots that are self-reported to determine just a few at random. Okay, let's use Deer Lodge Trailer Park. They're even worse off. They're paying $78.64 a month in tax. You go down to a trailer park, Lashley Trailer Park, they're paying $30 a month tax. Okay, and I'm assuming there's only one trailer there. If there's two, it's only 15, of course. Okay.
Sir, I don't need to cut you short here a little bit, but we probably need our staff to take this and digest it and come back and give us a report. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this.
Okay.
So
What I'd like to do, I'd like to move that the taxes as applied concerning the resolution levying a tax on automobile trailer camps, fixing amount and providing for the collection thereof, and prescribing penalties for violation of resolution. I move that this 1963 resolution be rescinded effective September the 1st, 2019.
yeah, what we'll do is we'll have staff look over this and then come back to the commissioners and help us fully understand all of this.
Ed just seconded the motion, and I'm not certain. It's been a long time since I've taken and used the Robert Rules of Order. I believe once they
This is citizens' participation.
Made, it does need to require a vote.
So,
You're not a member of the body, sir, and you can't make a motion.
Excuse me?
You are not a member of the Board of County Commissioners, and you may not make a motion.
Okay. I asked then, does anyone have the courage to do this?
Commissioners, there's some additional background to this. It has to do with the way that Department of Assessments and Taxations taxes real property in mobile home parks. Obviously, this has been a long-standing practice in the county, and I would suggest that you hear from the treasurer as well as the assessors at the Department of Tax Assessment and Taxation before any action is taken. And it does consist of about $500,000 worth of revenue for the county, obviously, which would have to be replaced if this were adjusted in some manner.
Actually, it's $600,000 over 2 years. Okay, that would be affected. The question to me is, another question that I have, is why are we being taxed at all? We're no different than any other residential property inside the county. Okay, we're renting a lot instead of a house or an apartment. But why aren't they being rented? Also, there may be another ledger sheet that I was not provided with, where they're collecting taxes from the campgrounds, but I don't see where any of the campgrounds are being taxed.
okay, so what we'll do is staff's going to review this, and then we could possibly, as a group of county commissioners, have a small workshop or something like that, and then staff will recommend to us on how we should proceed with this.
Okay, well, I would suggest that it have some priority associated with it, because the tax is being applied unfairly, according to what it is. And again, it's not a mobile home tax. It's a tax on automobile trailers.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay?
Thank you, and you have a good day.
Yeah,
Thank you for the
bringing this up.
opportunity.
Thank you all for your time.
Vice President Baker, I do have a July 8, 2019 letter here from the Treasurer's Office, which I'll provide to each of the commissioners. One thing I think it is important to note in that is from Todd Hershey is quote, "It is important to understand that the mobile home tax was implemented due to the fact that improvements were not being assessed by Maryland State Department of Assessment and Taxation, presumably because mobile homes were historically mobile." I can go on and provide the entire letter, but there is some, as Kirk's pointed out, there is some background to this. So.
You could pass, get that out to all of us, I think that.
Thank you. Have any other citizens here today that'd like to participate in citizens' comments? Okay, that concludes citizens' participation. Moving forward, the intergovernmental cooperative purchase, State Highway Administrator's contract for line striping at various locations in Washington County. Ms. Noggle and Mr. Levine.
Good morning. Randy Noggle, Purchasing Department.
Doug Levine, Highway Department.
Zane Drought, Director, Highway Department.
The recommendation we have for you this morning is for the approval to utilize the Maryland State Highway Administration contract for line striping at various locations within Washington County. The recommended motion is to authorize by resolution for the Highway Department to utilize the Maryland State Highway Administration contract with Alpha Space Controls out of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, for the line striping in the amount of 1,309,520 linear feet at the cost of .074 per linear foot in various locations throughout the county, the total amount of $96,904.48. The Code of Public Laws of Washington County, Maryland provides that the Board of County Commissioners may procure goods and services through a contract entered into by another governmental entity. By approving the use of this contract, the county will benefit due to the economies of scale this contract has leveraged. The Highway Department has budgeted for these services in their operating budget.
Okay, any questions, comments, Commissioners? Motion to approve, or
I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bid award, liquid roof coating system at the Hagerstown Regional Airport. Ms. Noggle and Mr. Plessinger. How are you this morning?
Good, how about yourself?
Good. Good, thank you.
The second recommendation I have for you this morning is for the bid award, POR 1438 for liquid roof coating system at the Hagerstown Regional Airport. Move to approve the contract for the liquid roof coating system at the airport to the responsible bidder of Jake's Roof Restoration of Greencastle, Pennsylvania, in the total sum price of $58,950. On July 24, 2019, the county issued an invitation to bid for these subject services in the local newspaper, the eMaryland Marketplace website, and the county website. 13 companies downloaded the document, and we received 3 bids in as per the bid tab attached. The services will provide the application of liquid roof coating for an existing metal roof over the aviation aircraft storage facility located at 18635 Jarkey Drive in Hagerstown. The funds have been allocated in a capital account.
Any questions, comments?
Yes. On the back of the page, it says add or deduct the, for the warranty, the 11917. Can you give a little explanation of what this warranty is, and is that included in the 58, or is that additional to the 58?
That was additional to the 58, and essentially what that is an extended year on the warranty. So I believe it goes, it was a 15-year system, and then it was 20 after that.
So 20 additional years or 5 additional years?
5 additional years, correct.
Are you asking us to approve that warranty as well?
We were just looking for the base bid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Court?
I'm just doing some math real quick.
Okay. Want me to wait on you?
Huh?
Okay.
No, we're good.
Okay.
I'm fine either way. They're basically, when you're looking at the cost per year for the 12,000 additional, it's not outrageous for additional 5 years, but the 15s also, they're within the same break. So
Did I hear you say you're not looking for the warranty approval, or did I hear just a general?
Not the extended. So we're
Why-
looking for the 15.
How's
the
that
base.
happen then later on the extended?
Basically, we're just looking for the base bid due to the budget reasons.
Okay,
So
so
58 is what we have in the budget. We don't have.
you're not even
more
requesting
funds
the
to
warranty
allocate.
then?
Correct.
I motion to approve the request.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, budget transfer for terminal expansion. Mr. Plessinger?
Yeah. It looks like you guys are stuck with me for a couple more agenda items. So what we're looking to do, budget transfer to provide local funding for the project for the terminal. And there were two main factors causing this local portion to increase, which we did not have budgeted for. The increased cost, project cost went from 5.5 to 6.5 million. And then also the FAA came up with a list of ineligible costs. And basically, the reasoning why it increased in cost was availability of contractors and temporary facilities to house the passengers are the biggest factors for the additional project cost. And then the portions that are not allocated as FAA eligible, or portions of the cafe, airport offices, conference room, and TSA area. Essentially, they're helping with the groundwork and the framework, but not necessarily the finishings inside of those. So we're looking for a $207,000 increase to the budget, and which will come from the general fund.
Questions, commissioners?
you're asking for the 207 increase, but right above it says increased project costs are $1 million additional?
Correct. So the local share is 5%.
Okay.
So that's roughly 50,000 with increase in that cost. And then the other portion of that 207 would be due to the ineligible cost deemed by the FAA.
So how much will be the county's increase? What are you asking for the county? Is it the full 207,000?
Yeah, so the increase is 207,000. The total county contribution for the whole project is 506.
Garrison, that 506, I thought that was before the 207. So it's just total price, everything's
Total price, total local share is 506,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And we had a rough time getting bids anyway, right?
we did. Yeah, we didn't get any bids the first go round, and then we received two the last.
Under concurrences on the agenda?
I concur with the
Okay. Okay.
Without this additional 207, I don't believe your expansion project is fully funded. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It is good value with the grant funding that's provided for the county.
Any other questions, Go ahead.
No, I knew what you all went through because I'm on your board to get this done. I'd motion to approve that.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second for the approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Bid award, the airport terminal building expansion project. Mr. Curry, Mr. Plessinger. How are you this morning there, Mr. Curry?
Fine, sir, thank you. Okay, subject before you is bid award PUR 1436, the airport terminal building expansion project. Move to award the project to responsible bidder, Cal's Contractors LLC of Hagerstown for the lowest total base bid amount of $6,050,000. Also for alternate number 2, an amount of $156,500. Alternate number 3, an amount of $90,000. And alternate number 4, in the amount of $32,500. And alternate number 5, in the amount of $62,000 for a total sum bid of $6,391,000. Also contingent upon the final contract approved by the county attorney's office. You have a bid tabulation sheet attached to the ARF. The bid was advertised as we normally do in the various medias. 86 persons downloaded the bid document. As stated before, we had 2 bids received.
The project is slated to be completed in 365 days. There is liquidated damages in the amount of $1,500 per day if the project is not completed in that time frame. Right now, the hold room at the airport holds 100 passengers. With the larger airplanes that are coming in, the expansion will accommodate anywhere from 166 to 180 passengers. It would also increase the area by 3,500 square feet. Also, you have a breakdown of the funding source of the project of FA, MAA, and also local portions. And you have a bid tabulation showing the bids received from the two vendors who submitted bid proposals.
Okay, any questions, comments, commissioners?
Just one quick question here. Alternate number 6, the new generator, why isn't that included? Is that again an option we're not going to pursue?
So the alternate number 6 basically is, we have a generator as it is. It's not quite big enough to cover that, but due to budget reasons is why we're not looking to pursue that. Yeah.
I got a curious question. That new plane Allegiance flying to Myrtle Beach, it was, and that's like a 180 passenger plane, isn't it?
Yep, 186.
So what did we do with those people before this?
It was just really crammed in the hold room. We currently open our conference room for expanded hold room space, but still that is not enough.
Any other questions, comments? If none, a motion to move forward with the recommended motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the project and offer the bid to Callis Contractors.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sole Source Procurement Award for School-Based Health Centers in Washington County, Mr. Curry. And Ms. Hartshorn, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
Good.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing. Subject is Sole Source Procurement Award for school-based health centers in Washington County. Move to award a sole source procurement to Meritus Medical Centers Incorporated in an amount of $190,365 for operating expenses of school-based health centers operated at Western Heights Middle School and South Hagerstown High School. Proposal is for 1 year, tentative to begin July 1st, 2019, ending June 30th, 2020, with an option by the board to renew 3 consecutive 1-year periods through 2023. OMG, which is the Office of Grant Management, wish to apply Section 1-106.2A1 of the Code of Public Laws to procurement requests. The section states that sole source procurement is authorized and permissible when only one source exists that meets the county's requirements. This request requires approval of 4 of the 5 commissioners. In order to proceed with this sole source, if approved, the following remaining steps of the process will occur as outlined by the law. Not more than 10 days after execution and approval of the contract under this section, procurement agency shall publish notice of award in a newspaper of general circulation in the county. An appropriate record of a sole source procurement shall be maintained in the office. Fiscal impact, there was no county funds requested for this. And also you have attached the school-based health center scope of work.
Any questions, comments, commissioners? If none, motion to move forward as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, have a good day. Construction bid award, underpassway sidewalk extension. Mr. Hobbs.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to recommend the board award the underpassway sidewalk extension contract to the lowest responsible bidder, MIM Construction of Frederick, Maryland, in the amount of $122,036. The project was advertised in the Herald Mail, on the county's website, on an email marketplace advantage. 6 bids were received and opened September 4th, 2019. The bids have been evaluated and the low bid from MIM Construction is in order. The engineer's estimate for this work was $150,000. Project involves the installation of 650 lineal feet of sidewalk along Underpass Way between Halfway Boulevard Bridge over Underpass Way and the existing sidewalk installed as part of the Underpass Way at Railway Lane project. The work includes grading, curb ramps, signage, pavement markings, and construction of a retaining wall. Project was designed to comply with American with Disabilities ADA standards. This is a 60 consecutive calendar day contract with an anticipated notice proceed in early October with anticipated completion in early December. Work will be performed in the area and require shoulder or lane closures throughout that time period. The bid documents include liquidated damages in the amount of $500 per calendar day for work beyond that completion date. This is a budgeted capital improvement plan project. Total expenses are estimated at $142,000, including inspection and testing and construction contingency. If there's any questions.
You mentioned the linear feet. How wide will it be?
5 feet along the major portion of the road, and then under the bridge, we'll expand 1 additional foot under the bridge. It's very, with the 2 lanes, it's narrow lanes, but we're going to widen that slightly. So it'll go from underneath the bridge. We actually provided some enhancements with lighting underneath the bridge, and then that'll extend to where the Ramada entrance is and the buildings, the businesses down where we provided the project years past at Underpass Way and Railway Way, and the improvements, the sidewalk will extend to there and be 5 foot wide.
Nice.
Yeah, another curious question. I always seem to have curious questions. This, we've worked with the awarded company before, obviously, have we, or is that it?
They've bid our work previously. Never received a bid. We checked references. City of Hagerstown has a couple of projects they've worked with, and
I was just curious because the bids are really spread out. I understand some people just bid high because they're busy, but you got 50,000 to the next bid, and then it goes well over 100 to the.
Sure. Yeah.
That just
in this
always
case,
makes
the
me
maintenance of
think.
traffic is one fluctuated cost. They're lower on that with shoulder and lane closures. Some companies, provide lower costs there. The retaining wall, some companies have access to retaining wall materials and can build that work. Those are the 2 numbers that we saw that brought their bid down lower. It's in line from where we thought the estimate would be. We've seen over the years, and Rick in purchasing can also probably verify this with me. We've seen varying fluctuations of bids depending on how busy the contractors have been, the work that's going on in the area. This company's from Frederick, but they're doing work now in Hagerstown, so that may add to the cost being lower than what it might be otherwise.
Okay, if no other questions, a motion to move forward is presented.
Motion to move forward.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Washington County Goes Purple campaign. Councilwoman Emily Keller from the city of Hagerstown, and also Sheriff Mullendore. How are you two today? And I see Mr. Stoner.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, Commissioners, we were asked to give an update on Washington Goes Purple and the opioid crisis in the county. And I think that we are making some headway. It's very slow progress. This is not something that occurred overnight, and it's not something that's going to be solved overnight. But all the initiatives that we have going on in the county, from prevention to awareness to enforcement, I think is starting to make a difference. I don't normally do numbers, but I wanted to give you some numbers. These are law enforcement responses to overdoses in our county. So in 2017, law enforcement responded to 378 overdoses. 29 of those were fatal overdoses. In 2018, that dropped down to 298 overdoses. However, the fatal overdoses went up to 50. And that's largely in part to what we see now is mostly fentanyl
as opposed to heroin and other synthetics. In 2019, and this is for the same period, which is January 1st through September the 17th, we have had 261 overdoses, so we're down 12.4% from last year. We've had 38 fatal overdoses so far, which is 24% decrease. Now that fluctuates, and between now and the end of the year, that could drastically go up, but those are the numbers that we have currently. So we believe we are making a difference, and we appreciate your support and efforts in that regard.
Yeah, if there is a right direction, I guess it's going in that direction. I don't think there's a right direction, but at least it shows that the awareness and efforts of Emily and you and everybody in the community that's really on top of this. Back in 17, our ambulance service was making at least a call a day and more than that. Now there's not quite that. If it's, your numbers, I'm sure, are accurate at 261. That's a 9-month period, right?
Yes, it is.
That's a 9-month period. So, like I said, there's no right direction unless you'll never zero it, I don't think, but it's a good target.
What we see currently is also some meth cases, which we had understood from our counterparts in West Virginia. That's what they started to see. And so we do see some indication of meth coming into to the county. They have been small cases, usually labs set up in a house or in a hotel room or something of that nature. So we're trying to stay on top of that so that doesn't take hold also.
Just a quick story of something that happened last Friday here. I was at Public Square Cafe, and it was Purple Friday, so of course we're encouraging everyone to wear your purple, and the school system is involved. And I walked in, and there was a father that had 2 daughters with him. One looked like she was probably 4th or 5th grade, and the other was probably 7th or 8th. And she saw my shirt, and the older daughter said, "Oh, I forgot to wear my purple today." And the younger daughter said, "I have my purple dress on." And the father, I was totally eavesdropping on the conversation, but he said, "The most important thing is, do you know why everything is purple?" And they continued to have a conversation about drugs and awareness and prescription painkillers and what they've been talking about in schools. And what really struck me as it's clear we're making a difference was the father told these 2 little girls the story about when he had shoulder surgery and he was prescribed prescription painkillers and how he tried not to take them and then turn them back into police when he was done. And he said, because that could have happened to me, that could have led down a path of addiction to me. And I thought, how cool is it that he humanized it to his own daughters as to, hey, this could happen to any of us. That's why it's important. And we all got together for Washington Goes Purple to try to encourage this conversation in our community. And I was so proud to hear it actually happening, because that's what we want. We want those conversations with our kids. And so they know it doesn't discriminate. It could have happened to your father. It could happen to you. And I think as long as we continue having these conversations, this visual, encouraging our community to be honest and talk, that we're going to continue making progress. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate the county school system support. We've been in every elementary, middle, and high school. We've been providing messaging to them so they can take it and run with it in their own schools. We have 3 pilot schools this year, Bester Elementary, Western Heights Middle, and North High, that we've been working with, and trying to figure out what works for the kids, what resonates with them, so that way as we move forward in years to come, we can tailor the education and make sure that it's effective. So I think this is all very good progress that we're making.
Yeah, and something we forgot to mention, and I think Emily was behind that, and the sheriff, and again, everybody involved, was the lawsuits that were filed against the drug manufacturers. Now, with that being said, you have drug manufacturers, you have prescribers, you have distributors. I think that puts them on notice that if I'm one of them, I don't want to get in the middle of a $1 zillion lawsuit. So I think that is there such a thing? There's a zillion, right? Yeah, Court. Yeah. So I think that that puts them on alert that maybe they're going to be more cautious of how they freely distribute the drugs. So I think that's a huge deal too. That's much as my opinion.
And the awareness by the physicians, because quite honestly, they had the wool pulled over their eyes in the initial aspect of this thing as well.
Right.
Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, has admitted under oath that they lied, that they knew the prescription painkillers were addictive and they continue to market them as non-addictive. I mean, they've admitted that. So I think now that obviously we know they are addictive, it's going to take a lot of years to correct what has been done, but we'll get there.
Emily, your campaign goes out into the community in so many different facets, but you talk about what you're doing in the schools quite a bit. Do you think that's where you make the most impact in the schools? Is that?
I think all of it. I think all of the awareness campaigns. I mean, we've been doing door-to-door walking take-backs. We're doing one in the the West End tomorrow, where we go with police and fire and knock on doors and explain our movement and ask if they have unused and unwanted medication, and we can take it right then and there. We've collected hundreds of pounds of medication that was just sitting in people's houses that puts them at risk. You know, their kids can go in their medicine cabinet, their grandkids. I think that education paired with talking to the kids, paired with just the visual awareness, because it gets our community talking, and also eliminates the stigma. So for people who want help, they feel more comfortable asking for it. So I think we have to hit it from all angles, and I think that's what we've really tried to do. And we have the faith-based community involved, the business community involved, the school system involved, our citizens involved. I think if we hit it from all angles often and consistently, that it's going to make the most impact. But yes, I mean, obviously talking to kids, we gotta try to prevent addiction. Once someone is addicted, it's so hard to stop. So if we can get them early and prevent addiction, which is our tagline, I think that's going to be the most effective.
And the important aspect is there's a number of people who are in recovery that are getting this message out there as well. And who to better to hear it from than people who have gone through it. And they've done a spectacular job with that.
Okay, Mr. Stoner, anything to add?
The only thing that I would add is that, you know, the wonderful work that Washington Goes Purple has done and continues to do, really a multifaceted approach. When we first started as a community, we obviously had individuals, when we had people dying, we still do, but we had a tremendous number of individuals who were dying. So our first focus was preventing that. Now what we're doing is trying to balance that with the continued stigma reduction that Councilwoman Keller talked about, and public awareness and education. Because we're looking at a generational issue. I think the sheriff alluded to it earlier in his statement that, you know, we're in it for the long haul. We're seeing trends, we're seeing good trends, but we're really in it for the long haul. We still have individuals who are in crisis. Our community planning group and the health department as a lead organization in that has prioritized and received money to start a crisis center. We are in the RFP phase for that. I think we'll be coming in soon, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, to seek approval for an awarding of that grant. But it really will be a center where individuals who are in current crisis that may not need to go to the ED, may be more appropriate for them to come to this crisis center, to be transported, walk in, dropped off, however they may get there. But there will be professionals there to meet them where they're at, triage that individual, hopefully get them, if they're ready, into a level of care that's appropriate for them, and really provide a necessary linkage at the moment of crisis, keeping them out of, you know, unnecessary care at the ED or not seeking care at all, but getting them to this center, seeing professionals that you know, have expertise in the issues that they're experiencing, mental health, substance use, and hopefully, if they're ready, linking them immediately into services. So,
if I walk into the health department this afternoon with an addiction problem, let's stay with the drugs. What happens? What happens to me in a?
You would be linked up with one of our counselors or a peer recovery specialist, who would obviously have conversations with you, see where you are. If you're ready to get into treatment, then they would assist you in the process of hooking up with a provider, hooking up if you were assessed for an inpatient stay, taking you through that process from a case management perspective to get you into treatment.
That would happen very quickly if I was cooperative?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
One comment, President Baker, and that is the commissioners as your strategic imperatives. The opioid crisis and addressing that is one of them, and another is public messaging. Ironically, those two come together here in collaboration through the community. So the collaboration, I think, is just as powerful as anything. The city and the county working together, the health department, the sheriff's office. Even the lawsuit, as mentioned, it all has to come together to fight such a strong epidemic. So I'd just like to say thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I just want to acknowledge Vicki Sterling, who's here too. She's been an essential part of Washington Goes Purple. She's the Director of Behavioral Health at the Health Department. Her team is the one providing the messaging for the schools, the one really doing the behind-the-scenes work, and they're working really, really hard. So I just wanted to thank her since she's here.
Did you want to say something, Vicki, or you?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for all the great news. Have a good day.
Sheriff's staying, I think.
Recruitment incentive pay and academy contracts. Mr. Mullendorf.
Yes, here before you today because, quite honestly, at the Sheriff's Office in all divisions, we're having very difficult time recruiting new applicants. We are under regulations by the Maryland Police and Corrections Training Commission, and there are certain requirements that each individual who gets hired must go through. And we've had difficulty because we're competing against many of the agencies to our east who are getting creative and doing various things, including what I'm recommending today, which is giving an incentive package to those individuals who may be interested in employment in Washington County. There are two contracts before you. One would be if it's a lateral transfer, somebody who is already certified but coming from another agency to the Sheriff's Office. And the second one is if they're going into an entry-level police academy and then being certified upon their graduation. The one where they would enter into the police academy and then subsequently through the be certified through the Maryland Police and Corrections Training Commission, there would be a reimbursement of $2,500 for the academy cost, and then there would also be a reimbursement for up to $5,000 for the incentive pay over a 2-year period. This would be at no cost, additional cost to the county because we have open positions, and it would only be during the time we have those open positions, and we would have that money in the budget through those open positions to be able to provide that incentive pay. Currently, just to give you an idea of where we stand, we have 6 open positions in patrol. We have 3 upcoming retirements by the first of the year that we have to replace, so that's 9 positions. Currently have 2 part-time positions in judicial, and we have 1 judicial position open currently and 1 retirement that will be January 1st. The detention center has 10 current open positions. That equates to about 10% of our workforce. And that really hurts, particularly in today's society where we have so many unfunded mandates that we have to do, and we're actually using a lot of overtime trying to maintain what we have. But that can only go so far because once they burn out on overtime, then we don't have any other options. So we're recommending today that you approve the incentive pay would be $2,500 per year for 2 years, so a maximum of $5,000. And that money would carry over from 1 year to the next. In other words, if there's an open position and we hire somebody with the initially $5,000 incentive, they would get $2,500 the first year. The $2,500 would carry over to the second year. So they would be getting a total of $5,000, but $2,500 for 2 years.
So that's the same for a recruit or a lateral transfer from another. So it's $5,000 max on either one.
That's correct.
How does that compare with Frederick County? Are they doing the same dollar amount? Or?
They are. Actually, Frederick City is actually doing $15,000. They're doing $5,000 for the first 3 years. And their starting pay is much higher than ours as well.
So
I
they got
noticed
billboards here, right?
Absolutely, they're hiring all the time. Particularly in corrections, they're really taking a lot of Washington County people because it's worth their time to travel across into Frederick County to get the additional pay. I just saw actually an advertisement for Washington Township Police. They're starting at $52,000. We're starting at about $48,000 here, and that's a very small department compared to ours. Frederick County recently got a pay raise for their folks. We are in the process, we're going to actually do our own pay scale study so that we can present that to you so you know where we stand as an agency. But it's making it much, much more difficult. We're all using the same pool, but that pool is getting smaller and smaller because no one wants to be scrutinized in law enforcement or corrections as they are currently. So,
as I currently read these contracts, it's just, especially the police academy training recruitment incentive pay. If just in a weird scenario, the way it's written is if somebody left at 2.5 years, they'd have to pay $7,500 back.
that's correct.
Okay, and so that's how it's written. There's no pro rata if they're leaving, because you said up to 5,000, but this is if you left at 2 years, 11 months, and 28 days, you're paying the entire amount back.
That's correct.
Okay, that's why I want to make sure that's how you wanted it.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If none, motion to approve as recommended.
I'd motion to approve as recommended.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Okay, the red line revision policy and minor site plans within the Division of Plan Review and Permitting. Mr. Holloway, and introduce your counterpart, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ashley Holloway, Director of Plan Review Permitting. I have here with me Rebecca Calamer. She's my new Chief of Plan Review. So since this subject falls in her section, I asked her to join me. Just want to speak to you briefly about minor site plans in our red line revision policy. I'll start off with minor site plans. According to the zoning ordinance, there's a definition for minor site plans. And it reads, a simplified version of a site plan that may be submitted in accordance with Article 4.11 for uses that have been approved by the Board of Appeals and or where the revisions or modifications to an existing site plan, building, or lot will not significantly change the development areas of the site or building footprint, subsequently increase traffic volumes, warrant substantial traffic flow improvements, require substantial public infrastructure improvements, and is not in any way sensitive area as defined in the comprehensive plan and where the site has not been identified on county historical inventory records. So my division, when we consider a plan, a minor site plan, we review this definition here. So it's something that there are minor changes, whether it's just a small addition or changes to a parking lot or changes to maybe an entranceway or something like that. And just to give you a couple examples, recently we did have some minor site plans that were submitted to my division. The Islamic Center, they had a minor site plan because all they did was just add to their parking lot. So they didn't change the building at all. They just took some vacant land that was on their land already, graded, and made it a parking lot. So therefore, we consider that a minor site plan because it did not really change anything about the property, just added more parking for them. Another example is the Beaver Creek School is being changed to an event center. We consider that a minor site plan because nothing changed to the property at all. Nothing to the exterior, nothing. The only thing was they needed to use the parking of the church next door, which became shared parking. And that was presented to the Planning Commission based on the zoning ordinance requiring that shared parking must be approved by the Planning Commission. But again, that was a minor site plan because there really wasn't much change to it at all. So are there any questions about minor site plans before I go into red line revisions?
Have any other examples of minor site changes?
Becca, can you help me out? Off the top of my head, there, I would say another example is GF Agriculture on Moggins Avenue. They're looking to pave their parking lot, do something slightly different with their stormwater management. So again, that was considered a minor site plan because right now their parking lot is gravel and they are looking to enclose some open space. So again, their building footprint is changing, but it's just enclosing some outdoor space. So it's not really, they didn't really acquire another piece of parcel to add to the building footprint. They're just enclosing some front space, or they're two separate buildings. So they're just trying to enclose the center building, and then they added some enclosure on the outside. So we consider that a minor site plan as well because it didn't really drastically change or significantly change any of their operations or the building, how it operates.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, even though they're minor site plans, they still have to be determined minor by the planning commission, correct? You just can't, you got to come in and say, is this a minor or a major change? Is that correct?
Not always. For example, the Beaver Creek School, the planning commission didn't determine that was a minor site plan. It only went before them because of the shared parking issue. If there was parking already on the site,
That wouldn't have came there.
That's correct.
But sometimes it does come there if there's a gray area of minor to major is what I'm getting at.
It can be, yes.
So what Commissioner Wagner just said in your answer, if someone came in for a red line revision, staff determines if it's a minor or a major change?
Yes. Actually, that would be myself. For a red line revision, that would be myself.
I have a copy for my counterparts up here. I have a few things highlighted. I'm sorry it didn't come through on this copy. I had asked Ashley a while back for examples of red lines, and I think this goes back maybe 2 years. You have a new system, and it was easy to get 2 years worth of data. One of these projects you mentioned about the footprint of the building. One red line revision included a new building that was 864 square feet. That's the size of a small house. My house isn't much bigger than that. Do you think that's appropriate? Is that a minor site plan revision?
And you said this was how much? 800 and
864 square feet.
And it was a red line?
Yeah.
I'll have to look at that project as a whole to determine whether that was appropriate or not. It could have been maybe that was a large project, and then something like Tremo Crow, maybe it was something large like that, and they added something.
It wasn't.
So that would determine.
When was that one, Wayne?
It's on page 5. There's also another one in here. Well, there's a couple in here. I'll let you go ahead.
Yes. When it comes to red line revisions, that is a policy that I actually put in writing recently. Before, it was just determined based on either the director of plan review and permitting or the chief of plan review or maybe even the planner that was assigned to the project. But now that I put something in writing, it clearly defines what is considered a red line revision. And you should have a copy there, which I did submit one with my ARF, that clearly lines out the policy. And the one major thing with red lines is myself, no one else in my division can determine whether something would be approved to go on as a red line revision or not because of, instance like you said, there was something that was 800 some square feet and things like that. So the major thing is I would decide whether it's a red line revision or not, and then red line revisions are only reviewed in my division. So if it has to go to an outside agency, whether it's the soil conservation, the health department, state highway administration, or the state fire marshal, then it would not be considered a red line. That it would have to be submitted as a full site plan submittal and go through the entire process.
One of these minor changes that you would approve on your own, if this was an issue to come before the planning board or board of zoning appeals, I guess notice would be given to the neighbors, the people that live in that area, adjoining properties, in case they had any concerns. It doesn't seem like with the red line revisions, there's an opportunity for people to express any kind of concerns for something that might be approved. Is that right? There's no public notice made that there's going to be a consideration made? Is
No,
that right?
that is correct.
Okay. And I mean, that's not, and this predates your position, so, you know, please don't take any of this personally. That's not really a transparent way to operate, I don't feel, for us. You know, I understand, you know, this might have practical applications in some ways, but I think when it's a major, minor revision that's made, we're not giving citizens an opportunity that would be affected by those changes to present. And I think with a planning commission decision or Board of Zoning Appeals, there's usually a 30-day appeal process or 30-day opportunity to appeal to the circuit court. And if citizens aren't notified, how can they appeal?
True. But not all site plans go before a public process. Not all go before the Planning Commission. Not all go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if we're talking about transparency, that means that every site plan that's submitted should have transparency and go before citizens.
Yeah, I think of the list that you gave me, a lot of these are for larger companies that certainly they go through that process. I didn't see anyone on the list, no private like homeowner that might have an issue that maybe could be rectified by a red line revision. Is this not open?
Residential use doesn't require a site plan.
So an example that I was getting, I had someone reach out to me a while back, and this was certainly not something that our department handled, but a swimming pool. They were made to take down a swimming pool and above ground because it wasn't permanent properly. It looks like some of these issues weren't permanent properly, but they were given the go-ahead. Is that fair to a homeowner that they would have to take down whatever project that they're trying to construct because they didn't go through the proper channels, and they should have? But this is a way around that for a non-homeowner?
Well, I mean, let's back up. First of all, permitting a swimming pool arises under building code process. It's completely separate from a legal theory standpoint, and that's meant to address safety concerns. That's why there's permit process for swimming pools. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, but I expect what you see on a regular basis is when site engineers put together a site plan, they have an approved site plan, and for whatever reason, there needs to be a small change, whether it's landscaping or something else. As a practical purpose, this is small site-specific things that they encounter when they're trying to complete the project. These types of revisions are not meant to change the use, change the general concept of what has been approved. And I suspect that this happens on a regular basis as a normal part of the construction activities. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, red line revisions are, like you said, just meant to do minor changes that does not disrupt the property and the use whatsoever. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Recently, Brook House, they added a small 378 square foot addition to one of their buildings. And I accepted that as a red line revision because it was just meant to just add like a small office to their building. So again, that was a red line. Another example is Cushwa Brewery. They moved from one building to another. The building that they moved to was first used for warehousing. Now it's being used as a restaurant. So therefore, things changed like parking requirements, things of that nature. That was a simple red line revision because the shape of the building didn't change. It was just the use, and they dealt with the parking already. So that was a red line revision because it was just a minor change.
So if you go from a warehouse to a restaurant, I guess maybe I don't understand. I would think there's a whole criteria or a whole set of rules that you would have to follow to become a restaurant. So I don't know how you go from and I'm just asking, how would you go from a warehouse to a restaurant?
Now, when it comes to the zoning code, we focus on the outside of the building, not the inside. So inside there, I'm pretty sure there were building code things that need to happen. But as far as zoning on the outside, the shape of the building, the footprint of the building did not change. The parking lot did not change. So therefore, just moving from one building to another.
But you still had to go through the permitting process to
Yes.
become a restaurant.
Yes, that is correct.
To what I've been involved in, nothing happens unless it's been through it's been through county codes and zoning codes, and again, we're back to minor changes with redlining. I mean, everything's already been permitted and approved before it even gets to that point, correct?
That is correct.
And like you said, every site plan doesn't have to go through if it's conforming already.
Correct.
But it's still, it could be, I mean, you're still going through they have to jump through all the hoops no matter what. They're already there. Yours is just, okay, let's make his parking lot 20 feet bigger.
Well, I think some of the examples are a lot more complicated than that. The 800 and plus square foot building, again, excuse me here, the 800 plus square foot building, I think is a little glaring. Also, for a property on Governor Lane Boulevard, there was a, looks like a gas canopy and new terminal that was redlined. And I don't know exactly what this means, a corresponding 14,000 by 6,000 gallon tank. So that kind of significantly changes the purpose and scope of what's being conducted at that business, that ordinarily that will go through a planning commission process or board of zoning appeals process. That to me isn't necessarily minor, in my opinion.
I'm unfamiliar with that project, but if it's dealing with, if it was a red line for their site plan, then I'm pretty sure it was not a big
I
change.
guess I can speak to that one.
Sure.
I was here when that
Thank you.
came through. But yeah, it was, I think, an existing fuel island, and they were adding a canopy and something to do with the state. They were maybe replacing some tanks. So it was an existing site. This was a small portion of the site where they were taking existing, this wasn't a public fueling center or anything of that nature. And they were adding the canopy. The purpose of the red line would be to check that it conforms with the zoning requirements. That's what the purpose for the red line would be, to do that
There's
review.
one a bit more recent that I think maybe you both could have been involved in. Hoping to find it here. More recent one that occurred in Big Pool, where a canopy that what had already been built, some diesel pumps moved around to accommodate more tractor and trailers to increase its functionality as a truck stop. We know that's a contentious issue in the county. Why was a red line appropriate for that if we're drastically changing the use to increase traffic, to increase volume there?
For that one, the use did not change. According to the county zoning ordinance, it was not considered a truck stop. It was considered a service station. Truck stops, according to the county zoning code, consist of overnight accommodations, a restaurant, and truck repair. And that location doesn't offer any of those.
And I know we've had this conversation before.
Yes.
There was a court ruling that ruled otherwise. And yes, it's in an appeals process, but that's not really what our zoning ordinance says, so says the judge.
Right, but that judgment came after the use was established here, so that the judge's ruling would not hinder that operation because of the grandfather clause, because it was already operating.
Do you really think it is a truck stop only if there's hotel accommodations? I think lodgings. Is that what you said?
Overnight accommodations.
Overnight. You know, I like my analogies here, and I've stayed at a lot of hotels all over the United States, the world. I've stayed in some hotels that have swimming pools, some hotels that don't, some hotels that have barbershops, some hotels that don't, hotels that will sew you up a really nice business suit, and hotels that have cockroaches in them. So the accommodations that they offer, the ancillary businesses, doesn't really define it as a hotel. It's serving a purpose for trucks, okay? It's not those side benefits that you can get if you go there. You know, some truck stops might offer services that others don't, but I don't think hotel accommodations has to define a truck stop. Maybe that's a conversation for something else another day, but.
Yeah, but to further answer your question, that was considered a red line because, again, there was no substantial change to the layout of the property. It was just to make their approved site plan look like how the current conditions are today, which they took their parking that was straight parking and made it diagonal. They did add the canopy on there, and they did block their ramp that was used to go from the lower part where the petroleum pumps are up to the diesel pump. That was cut off. So
I guess my biggest concern, again, I'll go back to, these are processes that normally if they were included in the planning process, there's an opportunity for the neighbors, citizens to voice a concern or offer an alternate solution that might be more, reasonable. And because this is done outside of that purview, it doesn't give the public an opportunity to respond. We say there's still a 30-day appeal process, but if you don't know, how do you know to start that? So I think personally this is something I would like to give a little more thought to.
Commissioner Kiefer and commissioners, having been at 80 West, there's always a delicate balance between what review is ample and what review is over scrutinized and requires additional time. I think staff here has tried to follow the criteria as best they can. Certainly what's too much in one's mind may be too little in another's mind, and that's a legitimate judgment call. It's simply the perception. If we could, would you consider, and I thought there was some type of, not necessarily for the red line, maybe this doesn't address that, but a 10% on building square footage or something to quantifiably say if it exceeds this value roughly, you would then consider it for a change, or it would be, at that point it could be dismissed for a red line. That way you have some type of quantitative guideline to go by. Would that be helpful, or would that not be helpful?
I think you're right. I think there needs to be a way to quantify this, and I don't know if that's the suggestion I necessarily agreed with, but I like your thinking there.
I don't think we'll get a consensus no matter how we do it. I'm personally not against, and somehow we had an agenda of truck stops here, which I think that's the whole agenda anyway. This redlining, I've followed it. I live this system pretty much for the last 30 years. Everything could use tweaked, and I'm not disagreeing with what Rob said. Everything could could be tweaked, but our system's pretty good. I sit it, I live it. Sometimes there's good days for people, and sometimes there's bad days for people. I think our zoning has been fairly well. I think we've had a lot of meetings and places I've been for citizen participation has been well. I think there's notices up almost everywhere where there's something critical. There's one sitting out on Halfway Boulevard. I just passed it yesterday in Downsville Pike at public hearing. I think if we start digging into this redlining and dig in too far, we're going to have to rewrite the books. I think there's a time and a place for it. Maybe we're over across the line a little bit. I'm not sure, but I look through this, and like I said, this is part of my life. I just don't think we have to reinvent the wheel here. That's just my opinion. So,
I do have to say that, Ashley, I want to thank you for this memorandum and actually starting a procedure in place where, from how you described, a lot of different people had control of that, and now there is a set procedure of how the red line policy goes, where it looks like before August 29th there was not a set procedure. So I have to thank you for having that set procedure, because now, it lets the builders and the people that are out there doing this know what this red line provision is for, and I think that's going to help them. And I think that it also helps us knowing what these procedures are. Now, could we quantify and change it for those procedures? But at the same time, I don't want to be known as a county that is going to hinder the growth of county because we have to jump through every single hoop, and then next thing you know, we don't have economic development. So I think this is a good starting point, and we can go from there. So,
thank you.
And for me, I don't think this really hinders growth. I think what it does, it gives our citizens that have been part of our community an overwhelming majority of their life when changes are going to occur in their community. I think it keeps them in the loop, and it keeps them part of the process. And I think their voice needs to be heard as well. So I think we could all sit here and have agreements and disagreements. But I did like Rob's suggestion on ways of coming up with some quantification thoughts and ideas. But again, I think it's our job as county commissioners to make sure that we help and protect businesses as well as our citizens in our community. And if we can do that, then we've done our jobs.
And that was a good closing comment, and I don't disagree a minute, but right now we give our citizens, they can come in here, citizen participation, they can come to all the zoning meetings, they can be active. So I don't think.
Well, I agree with that, but if there's some change, and as he
If there's a
referenced,
major change, absolutely, they all have the letters go out and everybody has an option, but if we start messing with this red line and we, just for instance, once we mess with it, then I gotta come in and get my parking lot expanded. You know, it's just stuff that costs more money for the citizens because we gotta pay more people to do it. So, you know, I just think we're reinventing the wheel here. I don't think it's necessary.
yeah. And for me, I just look at it as a tweaking that needs to be done, so.
I think it's an opportunity, if this board truly wants to be transparent, it's an opportunity to, you know, allow the public to be more involved and, you know, give them notice where there's currently not notice given now. It sounds like we disagree, and that's okay. But
Well, nobody's disagreeing with that. And like I said, I think this is a very good start, where before the 28th, there was nothing. And I think this is a very good start. And I agree, having a policy is going to help both the builders and the public know what's going on. Before, if there wasn't a start, it could have been a judgment call for any of how many people. I agree that this makes sense. I also agree that there does need to be a red line revision where if something's minor, and you know, and I read through one of these, they moved a pole, you know, and that's a red line. You know, if they moved a pole, why would you have to come in and say, oh, I moved it 5 feet, who cares? You know, as long as it's on your property and if it's a thing, but because of some reason they moved it, we need to expedite that so that it doesn't delay 30 days for a notice, and then they sit there and then the builder doesn't do this. Those little things we need to make sure we do have a red line, and not everything is coming up for a 30-day review, because that will affect builders. You know, and that's what I think this policy does. Now, does, like Commissioner Baker here, does there need to be tweaks? It's possibly, but what I don't want to do is overjump it, where then all of a sudden these little tweaks that are coming through have a 30-day review, and then our people trying to expand their businesses are coming going, what the hell am I doing? It's wasting my time on this when all they were trying to do is a little thing here or there. So I don't want to overstep is all that my concern is, because we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity and not burden them with government bureaucracy, which we all know can slow down any type of economic development.
And I think we all preach, let's speed the process up. We are going to slow it down. I was at the Planning Commission the other night, and there was minor, major. When something that I think is important, then the Planning Commission says, is this minor, major? You can't redline that, you know? So, anyway, but that's all.
I mean, it's been my experience that staff takes a fairly conservative approach to these things, and if they thought that there was going to be a question as to what is major, what is minor, that they'd err on the side of caution and go to the Planning Commission and say, hey, do you think this is major or this is minor? I think it's also appropriate that at some point you got to defer to the expertise and judgment of the staff who see these things every day and have to make these judgment calls every day with every site plan that comes through. And this would be a broader discussion. If you're looking to change the process, I think it would also be appropriate to bring in the engineers and the site consultants who deal with this on a daily basis as well.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you, and thank you, Ashley, for providing this information, and also the county commissioners would like to congratulate Rebecca on her recent promotion. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you.